Okay, welcome everyone to a new series of burst sessions on inclusive practices in mathematics. So this is the K-5 session, and this time we will be focusing on the structure of Math Workshop. My name is Janice Nowakowski, and I'm one of the teacher consultants for the Richmond School District, and my area is K-12 mathematics and numeracy. So when we think about inclusive practices in mathematics, particularly, we want to think about ways that we can build on students' funds of knowledge and interests and what they bring to the conversation around mathematics, what they're interested in, what they're able to do, what they've learned from their family or their culture, and what they're bringing into the classroom. And then we also want to think about choices for where and with who students learn with. That engagement and that motivation for them is often about learning environment and social emotional factors that we need to consider. We also need to consider creating choices in the materials that students use and the access to tools and technology that they have. And then finally, thinking about creating those choices for different ways for students to represent and share their learning. And you'll see examples of all of this as we share a little bit around Math Workshop. So what is Math Workshop? Math Workshop is a structure that includes building a math community, engaging in mathematical discourse, so hearing different ideas and what children bring to the discussion. It also includes opportunities for focused practice and explicit instruction around foundational math concepts, and opportunities for the teacher to confer with students about their learning, and small group instruction, which can also be used for assessment time. Students are able to make choices for practice based on the learning goals. So you might have a learning goal for your whole class. We're all focusing on strategies for subtraction, for example, and then individual students might have a specific strategy that they want to focus on or a number range that they focus on, and they're aware of that. And then they make their choices for their practice tasks based on their learning goals. That also helps teachers bring students together around small group instruction based around strategies that they need to practice, concepts that they need to develop, or practice with computation within their number range. So Math Workshop has different components or elements depending on the research behind it. So the two key researchers in this area are Dr. Jennifer Lemp and Dr. Nikki Newton, and they've published several resources. Dr. Jennifer Lemp talks about opening Math Workshop always with a number sense routine. So it's building class community and discourse and building number sense all together in that 5 to 10 minute routine. And then the next part of Math Workshop for her might be a math task, like a problem solving experience, or a numeracy task, and then students sharing their results. There might be a focus lesson after the number sense routine where there's some explicit teaching around a concept or a strategy. And then there's guided math and learning stations, always usually together. So the children have learning stations or centers or choices of different practice tasks. And then the teacher is able to provide that guided math or small group instruction. And then Math Workshop closes with student reflection. And because the Math Workshop is all focusing around the same learning goal, it doesn't really matter what tasks students have done to practice. They can all come back and share how they practice those subtraction strategies, as an example. Dr. Nikki Newton has been doing this work for decades now and has several publications around guided math and Math Workshop. She talks about beginning with energizers and routines, that same kind of thing, 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning to bring the students together around mathematics. And then a mini lesson where there's explicit instruction, guided math, workstations, conferring, and that's having those conversations or math interviews with students. And then closing with the share as a way to consolidate. So students sharing what they learned, what they did, what strategies they practiced, etc. So here's 3 different sort of formats for Math Workshop. So you can sort of pick and choose different elements depending on the needs of your students and what your instructional focus is, all beginning with some sort of opening routine, whether it's a number sense routine or an energizer, that mini focus lesson, then the choice of practice tasks or small group instruction, and always closing with consolidation in some form, and then self-reflection. So what did I learn today? What do I need to continue to practice? And you can see those different formats, and they're all available to find out more about in their books. So here are some math workshop resources. You can see Jennifer Lemp's books at the top. Her new book for grade 6 to 12 has just come out. And then Nikki Newton's newest math workshop book on the bottom left here. And then there's lots of other resources available as well. This work has been ongoing for decades. So math work essentials in the moment and math exchanges on the bottom right are really focusing on that conferring or interviewing time with students. And then on the top right, the two books there, Meaningful Small Groups in Math, and the purple book, Making Sense of Mathematics for Teaching in Small Groups, really focuses on what the teacher does with the students when you have 2 or 3 or 4 students and you're doing that small group instruction. Other resources for Math Workshop to build your repertoire of those opening routines. So across the top left there, number sense routines, choral counting and counting collections. And then the types of things that you do during practice tasks or choice tasks. I use a lot of Marian Small open questions. So, the answer is 25. What could the question be? It's classic Marian Small, comes from her book, Open Questions, Boxcars and One-Eyed Jacks math games, other books around math games, Math Fact Fluency, also has a great website. So you're building your repertoire as a teacher of different routines and games and tasks that students can use to practice with. In terms of district resources, on the district math blog, there's a page of math games, videos, and instruction sheets, and tent cards, and all sorts of things to go with that. And then on the district YouTube channel in the Numeracy playlist, there's a list of videos on those instructional routines that you might open your math workshop with, whether it's Splat or a number talk images or same and different. Lots of videos there for your perusal. On RichNet, on Learn38, so again, if you go to Learn38 and you see this, and then you choose K to 2, 3 to 5, 6, 7, or 8, 9, under those frameworks are all these extra tiles. And I just wanted to highlight some of these. There are sample week plans. There are practice questions available from Transitional Learning. There's a tile here or a page on math games. And then Chris Lote has just added this new tile on Math Workshop across kindergarten through grade 9. And so if you look at that and you click on that, you'll be able to find lots of resources, and we'll be continually adding to that as well. So there's the games, routines, tent cards that you can use during Math Workshop, and other planning resources to come. So as an example from Learn38, here's one of the sample week plans for grade 2. This is around practicing adding and subtracting to 100. And you can see how these lessons on Tuesday and Thursday open with a math routine. And then you go into Math Workshop with the different practice tasks and the small group instruction. And you can see it's outlined for you here in terms of what that focus is. And then that closing circle that involves consolidation and self-reflection. So there's different examples of week plans available to you on Learn38. The math practice questions were just loaded in June, and those come from Transitional Learning. So when we were teaching students, those thousands of students that were learning from home, so there's banks of questions, and they're sorted by the 5 big ideas in our math curriculum. So number concepts, computational fluency, patterns in algebra, geometry and measurement, and data and probability. And so it's a PDF, a K to 1, 2 to 3, 4 and 5, 6 to 7, and you can download them, and they look like this on the left. And what I've been doing is I download them, and then I just copy and paste the different texts onto a Word document, usually 2 to a page. And then I print them on cardstock, and then I put them in a basket, and that's one of the table tasks for choice, for really that sort of deliberate and intentional practice around really important foundational concepts, skills, and competencies in mathematics. So those are all there for you, and you could use those all year long. So here's some examples where you're going to see some of those things woven in, the games and the practice tasks into Math Workshop. And these are examples from Richmond classrooms. So this was just in a kindergarten class like a few weeks ago. We were focusing on number concepts in kindergarten. That was been their focus all fall. We began with the opening number sense routine of Splat. The teacher had a large splat that she had made with googly eyes. We did splat together as a class on the carpet for about 7 or 8 minutes. We did a couple of different questions, and then the students had a choice of table tasks. So here's some examples here. They had the little mini splats that they could do with a partner. There was a buffet of different materials out. How many different ways can you make 5 or 10 or 12? So again, that choice of quantity as well as that choice of material built in. Count up shakers, and then a concept circle. So what are all the different ways we can make 7? So just some examples there. And then we came together on the carpet just for 5 minutes at the end, and we just did a closing conversation. You know, what did you do? What did you choose today? And what math were you practicing? And with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, sometimes it really helps to make that explicit, to help them name the math that they were practicing. So counting or representing numbers or parts and wholes of numbers, etc., and modeling a little bit of that. Here's an example from a kindergarten and grade 1 class. On the left, you see one of the practice tasks, which was make 20. So they had a double 10 frame mat. And they just roll the dice and add the gems and fill it up till they get to 20. And as students were doing those tasks, and with Math Workshop, I wouldn't be introducing a new task to them. These are all things that they already know how to do, so that they can do them relatively independently. And of course, it depends on the time of the year, and you sort of build up the students' stamina around how long they can do these things on their own independently. And then once they're able to do that, then you start the small group instruction, which you can see on the right. I've got my materials already. I have my learning standards and a class list ready, and I'm calling 2 or 3 students over at a time. And in this case, I was checking on subitizing, being able to count, and being able to represent like with a symbolic notation and a quantity of concrete materials. And so just able to check off what students were able to do that and which students need some continued development. Here's an example from grade 2 and 3 where we're introducing multiplication. So we opened with a number talk, and then we had some practice tasks in the middle that students already knew how to do. And then you can see on the top right there, the small group instruction, where we have a choice of materials. We have a choice of equation cards that they could choose from. And then I have the class list. And you can see it's divided into grade 2 and grade 3. And there isn't a learning standard around multiplication in grade 2, but there is around skip counting, and there is around cumulative addition. So that's what I was assessing, even though our focus was around multiplication. And then again, that consolidation time at the end, partner discussion, what did you practice today? And what are your next steps? So giving agency to the students in terms of what are they going to do to continue to engage in their thinking about multiplication. This is an example, a recent example from a grade 3 and 4 class. We're focusing on subtraction strategies. So again, we did a number talk together with 3-digit numbers, and then they had several practice tasks where they were asked to practice those strategies that were revealed during the number talk. So you can see there's some dice and whiteboards, there's subtraction face-off, there's the answer is 250, what could the subtraction question be? And I just wrote that on a piece of chart paper, and students went around and added different equations to that. We have those practice questions from transitional learning, and again, they were out there in a basket with whiteboards and markers at a table. And then in this class, part of the consolidation, based on my observations, I was noticing that a lot of students reverted back to sort of the strategy that they knew, which was the traditional algorithm. And I really wanted to nudge their thinking and move it forward around using the open number line strategy for subtraction. And so we did another question all together. And then I had them reflect on their learning, what they did, what they practiced, and what they learned. And sometimes I put that right up on the board to reflect on. All right, in grade 5, 6, an example, we started with a fraction talk on the top right there. So that's what we did all together. And then in this class, there were 3 choices, and the teacher rotated the students through the 3 choices. So there wasn't just sort of the open choice. In this particular class, the teacher felt she needed to do that. And again, you make that judgment as a teacher, again, depending on maybe the time of year or particular students having a bad week or a bad day, you might do it a little bit more structured and have students go through a rotation. But again, they're all practicing the same thing. So this class was working on equivalent fractions, as well as beginning to think about improper fractions and mixed numbers. So again, when I was working with a small group, That was over here on the carpet. I have the grade 5 and the grade 6 learning standards written out, and I'm watching and listening and recording what I'm noticing on that. And then here's a grade 6-7 example. In this class, the teacher focused on a curricular competency. And she said, this is the curricular competency that we're really focusing on this month, explain and justify ideas and decisions. So we wove that into everything that we did. We wove that into our opening. We wove that into the practice choices the students had. And then we also focused on that in the small group instruction and in the consolidation. So how students shared as well and explained the different strategies that they were using. You can see here the list of choices the teacher put out, the small group instruction and my recording sheet, my assessment sheet here. And then the opening was a routine, same but different. So just putting up those two numbers and having students explain and justify how they're the same and how they're different. So really focusing on a curricular competency all through the math workshop. And then a final example from another 6-7 class. This was focused on financial literacy. This was actually the subject of one of this teacher's inquiry grant that particular year. So we began with estimation 180. We did a routine around that, around coins. We made the learning goals really explicit for the students and wrote those out and put them on the board. Again, they had a choice of tasks, who they worked with, how they worked, how they recorded and shared their thinking. And then at the closing, again, we did another problem together and had students share the strategies that they had practiced and then had them think about what's next for their learning. And this is grade 6 and 7. So, they're able to be metacognitive and think about what their next steps might be. So I hope those examples help sort of illuminate to you the possibilities for Math Workshop. And we would like you to consider how might the structure of Math Workshop support the needs of the diverse learners in your classroom? Where might you start in building a collection of routines, tasks, and resources for use in Math Workshop? Hopefully we've provided you with some ideas. And what opportunities are there to find out what students know and can do during Math Workshop? So thanks for joining us. See you in the next session on inclusive practices for mathematics.